My parents said, maybe next year, when I asked if my son and I could come for Christmas. Said it was too crowded this time. But my cousin's new boyfriend and his sister were there. I just texted a photo of the gifts. 5 minutes later, my mom started calling nonstop. Then my dad showed up on my porch, furious. Without thinking twice, the first thing I felt was anger. Not confusion. Not sadness. Just this instant rising warmth in my chest when my mother said, maybe next year. I just asked if Josh and I could come home for Christmas. That's all. A simple question. She said it so casually, as if she was suggesting we meet at a coffee shop. She said there were too many people in the house. Too many. Josh is 6 years old. He doesn't take up much space. And I certainly don't eat enough turkey to affect the seating arrangements. I didn't argue. I didn't cry or beg. I just stood in the living room, holding the phone, nodding silently while my mom mumbled something about, Paige is bringing someone new, and there aren't enough beds. I didn't even ask who Paige was bringing because I already knew. Her new boyfriend. And his sister. They had never met either of them before. So two complete strangers got a place at our Christmas table. And my son and I were left without one. It was humiliating. But it was okay. That's what I told myself. It was okay. I wasn't going to ruin Josh's Christmas. I bought cinnamon sticks and cloves, made cider the way he likes it, and helped him write his letter to Santa. I wrapped our presents and put the last box under our little Christmas tree, the one I had originally planned to take to my parents. It was wrapped in silver foil with a red ribbon. Inside were two things, a box of expensive Belgian chocolates and a check for $8,000. They needed it. My parents' kitchen is falling apart. The floor sags when you walk near the refrigerator. The stove is held together with duct tape. They've been talking about replacing it for a year, but just can't afford it. My dad even half-jokingly said on Thanksgiving that, if Stacy doesn't play Santa this year, we'll be reheating ham in the microwave. So, yeah, I was going to help. Quietly. Without telling anyone. Until they told everyone that I had been expelled. On Christmas Eve, I took a picture of the wrapped box under our tree. I made sure the corner of the check was peeking out of the envelope. Then I sent the photo to the family chat. No caption, just the photo. But a minute later, I added, Merry Christmas from the two people you didn't have room for. My phone started ringing almost immediately. My mom called 5 times in 3 minutes. Then the messages started coming in, from, what is this? To, you're cruel. And then I heard the sound of tires on the gravel outside. It was my dad. He didn't knock. He just rang the doorbell and stood there waiting, as if he owned the place. When I opened the door, he didn't say hello or wish me a Merry Christmas. He just looked at me and asked if the check was real. I said yes. He said I had crossed the line. That I had embarrassed them in front of the whole family. That Aunt Rhonda and Uncle Mike had seen the message and asked what had happened. He said I was petty and dramatic and that I had no idea what kind of pressure they were under. I told him that they had made their choice. They invited their cousin's boyfriend and her sister, whom they happened to run into, instead of their own daughter and grandson. He said it wasn't personal, it just happened that way. Then he directly asked, if I could at least give them a check so they could start the repairs. He said they had already arranged it with the contractor. I said there wasn't any. I tore it up. He said I was cruel. I said no, just honest. He stood there breathing, like he wanted to say something, but I was already closing the door. He yelled that I was ruining Christmas. I said, no, you are. Josh was watching from the hallway. He asked why Grandpa came but didn't come in. I told him that Grandpa had forgotten how to be nice. Christmas was quiet. Honestly. Peaceful. Josh and I built a castle out of Lego and watched Home Alone with popcorn and marshmallow cocoa. He didn't mention Grandma or Grandpa once, which surprised me. Or maybe I wasn't surprised. Maybe he also felt this strange tension in the air, as if something had broken but no one wanted to admit it. Around 3 p.m., I got a message from my brother Tyler. What the hell happened yesterday? Dad said you humiliated them. Was it because of the check? You could have just dealt with it privately. I didn't respond. Later that evening, he texted again. You know they need that money. You're getting revenge. This was coming from a guy who calls his parents once a month to remind them about the rent. He's been between jobs for 2 years. Somehow he always finds money for VIP tickets and weed, but not for his $1,800 apartment. I turned off my phone and read Josh, the Polar Express, before going to bed. The next morning, Tyler showed up. Just like that. Without warning. He walked in like he owned the place. He said Mom had been crying and Dad had barely spoken all night. He said he didn't agree with what they had done, but that I had gone too far. I said, "Oh, you mean we didn't pay for their Christmas after they kicked me and my kid off their guest list?" He tried to play mediator. He said we should all calm down and talk things over. Then, and I knew this was coming, he changed tactics. He said that things had been very difficult for him lately and he didn't want to bother them again about the rent, but things were going badly. That his landlord was threatening to fine him for being late. That he would be very grateful if I could help him out for January at least. I said no. He blinked. He said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Very serious." Then his attitude changed. He said that I had become mean lately. That ever since I started making real money, I had been looking down on the rest of the family. I replied that if standing up for myself was being mean, then I should have started doing it sooner. He tried to back down, saying we should forget about everything and start with a clean slate. He said it was Christmas after all. I replied that he could start with a clean slate somewhere else. He left without saying a word. That night, I took the check, the real one, out of the drawer and threw it in the shredder, just in case. I didn't want to be tempted by doubts. I was no longer going to be the family wallet. After that, my parents fell silent. Until New Year's Eve. Then everything really went off the rails. New Year's Eve was supposed to be boring, and I was looking forward to it. No parties, no drama. Just Josh, pizza, and a small bag of sparklers I bought in the supermarket parking lot. Around 9:30, when we turned off the TV to read a bedtime story, it started snowing lightly. Josh was already half asleep on the couch. I had just gone over to carry him to bed when it happened. The living room window exploded. Glass scattered across the floor. A brick fell half a meter from where Josh was sitting. He screamed. I screamed. For 5 seconds, I couldn't even move. I just held him tight and tried to understand what had just happened. I ran to the front door, opened it, and there he was. My father. He was standing in my yard, red with anger, his arms outstretched as if he were holding back an earthquake. I yelled, "What the hell are you doing?" He yelled back that I had destroyed the family, that I had turned my brother against him, and that my mother had been crying for 5 days straight. Then he yelled, "You think you can just erase us from your memory?" He took a step toward the porch. I backed away and closed the door. My hands were shaking. Josh was still crying on the couch, barefoot, surrounded by glass. I called 911. The dispatcher calmed me down. The police arrived in less than 10 minutes. My father was still outside, walking around in the snow and shouting. When the police officer got out of the car, my father even tried to argue with him, saying it was a family matter, that I was just being emotional. But they handcuffed him. They asked me if I wanted to file a report. I said yes, without hesitation. Josh was silent throughout the incident. He just stared through the broken window as they led my grandfather away. Later that evening, after the glass had been cleaned up and the hole boarded up, the officer who had stayed behind to write up the report offered to come by the next day. He said he had a child Josh's age and understood how scary it must have been. His name was Ryan. He smiled at Josh and wished him a happy new year. Josh nodded, still silent, but no longer afraid. Ryan turned to me, paused, and said, "If you ever need anything, unofficially, give me a call." Something about the way he said it reassured me. I felt not only safe, but seen. I thanked him, closed the door behind him, and sat down on the floor next to Josh until he fell asleep on my lap. The next morning, I found out that my father had been arrested for disorderly conduct. 10 days. And he was officially banned from coming within 500 feet of my house. When my mother finally called that evening, I didn't answer. I didn't need her excuses. They had made their choice. I didn't hear from Tyler until the next day. He showed up again, this time without warning and without knocking, just walked in like we were on good terms. I was in the kitchen making Josh a cheese sandwich. Tyler started taking things out of the fridge like nothing had happened. He said he had talked to his mom. He said she was really upset, and had hardly slept since his dad was arrested. Then he said something that made me laugh out loud, even though it wasn't funny. He said, "You shouldn't have blown up like that." I replied that freaking out was like throwing a brick through someone's window. Freaking out was traumatizing a 6-year-old child. And then reporting it to the police? It was just common sense. He rolled his eyes and said, "Well, we all know you've always had a tendency to be dramatic." I didn't respond. I handed Josh his sandwich and told him he could eat in the living room. Tyler waited until Josh had left. Then he told me the real reason he had come. He said he was trying to keep his head above water, that his roommate had bailed on him at the last minute, and he was behind on his rent and his landlord had sent him a final warning. He wanted $1,800. He said it like it was no big deal. Like he was asking for a ride to the airport. I asked him what exactly had happened in the last 2 weeks to make him think I was in the business of saving people. He started talking fast, about how hard it was, how no one in his family helped him, how he wasn't like his dad, and how he never treated me like trash. He said, "I'm not asking you to pay this forever. Just this month. Please, Stacy." And then, I swear to God, he tried to make me feel guilty. He said that if he got evicted, it would be my fault because I turned my back on my own brother. I told him that this was the first time in his life he had to stand on his own 2 feet. I said that maybe that's why he was panicking, because for the first time, no one was cleaning up after him. He looked at me like I had hit him. Then he fell silent. He said he was just trying to keep his family together. I told him he could do that somewhere else. He left without saying goodbye. That night, Ryan texted me. Just checking in. Asked how Josh was, if I needed anything, even just to talk. I surprised myself and said yes. The next day, he came over with coffee and sat on the porch with me for an hour. He didn't pry. He just listened. I told him the truth, that I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt free. For the first time in many years, I didn't feel guilty for playing a role I didn't choose. I didn't have to be the backup, the invisible one, the one who got everyone out of trouble and then got nothing but grief for it. Ryan nodded. Then he said, "Okay. You deserve this." After that, he left, but something had changed. I hadn't just ended the chaos in my family. I was starting something new. A week passed. Dad was still in jail. Mom hadn't called since I ignored her. Tyler sent me 3 messages, all saying the same thing. "Can we talk?" I didn't reply to any of them. I was done. Josh recovered faster than I expected. He talked about school, asked if Ryan could come over again. He said he was cool with the cop, and spent most of his afternoons drawing rockets and dragons. The broken window had been replaced. The house was whole again. But my family wasn't done with me. Not even close. It was Wednesday when Ryan called. He didn't text, he called. He said something had happened and he thought I should hear it from him directly. It turns out my mom went to the station to ask them to lift the restraining order against me. She said it was all a misunderstanding. She said she needed me at home. Ryan said she was very emotional. She said things like, "This is tearing our family apart," and "she's just angry." Ryan calmly told me that the order would remain in place. Then he asked if I was okay. I said yes. Because I was. And because now I knew that they weren't just sorry, they were desperate. 2 days later, my dad was released. And then something happened that I will never forget. On Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, someone knocked on the door. They didn't ring the bell, they knocked. I looked through the peephole and froze. It was my dad. He wasn't standing on the porch. He was standing a little way back from the sidewalk, technically still outside the restricted area, but close enough to make his point. His hands were in his coat pockets, and when he saw me looking, he didn't smile. He just said, "We need to talk." I opened the door but didn't get out. I told him he was violating the terms of the agreement. He said he didn't care. He said he hadn't slept in 10 days and had come home to a war zone. My mom wouldn't talk to him. Tyler was spinning. And the whole family thought I was unstable. I asked him what he wanted. He said he wanted his daughter back. Then he asked if I still had the check. That was it. That was the real reason he came. He didn't come to apologize. He came for the money. I laughed, once, sharply, and said I hoped he liked microwave dinners. Then I said that if he didn't leave in 60 seconds, I would call the police again. He told me I was destroying the family. I replied that the family had already destroyed itself. Then I turned around and closed the door. Ryan came over that night. He brought Chinese food and sat on the floor with Josh, playing Uno for an hour. Josh was now fascinated by him. I didn't mind. After Josh went to bed, we talked until midnight. Then Ryan asked if I wanted to go out sometime, not just for coffee on the porch or a quiet date. I said yes, without hesitation. And it was nice. More than nice. I felt like I was finally making my own choices. New Year's Eve passed into January like smoke disappearing from the sky. Quiet. Cold. Peaceful. Josh started drawing hearts on napkins at lunch and asking questions about Valentine's Day. I asked him why, and he replied, "Because Officer Ryan might want to be my stepdad someday." I almost choked on my coffee. But he wasn't wrong. Ryan and I saw each other regularly. Not quickly, not intensely, just easily. Dinners. Walks. Movie nights after Josh went to bed. He was kind without trying to impress, patient in ways I didn't even realize I needed, and never once asked about my past unless I brought it up. When he was with Josh, something changed in the house. It was like the air was calmer. One night, when we were all asleep on the couch watching The Incredibles, I woke up to the phone ringing. It was my mom. I didn't answer. But then I noticed something. I had 12 missed calls, all from different numbers. It turned out that ever since Dad left, the family had been buzzing behind my back like bees. Tyler told everyone that I had sued him over an argument. He made it sound like I had ruined Christmas because I wasn't invited to the grown-up table. Not a word about the brick. Not a word about Josh. Not a word about the check. They rewrote history and made me out to be the villain. But they weren't stupid. Now they all knew about Ryan. Not just the cop, but the boyfriend. They didn't say it out loud, but I could feel it. The caution. The politeness in the rare text messages I received. The nervous tone when Tyler finally called and said, "Just wanted to check in and apologize for everything." I let him talk. He skirted the issue for a while, mentioned that he had found cheaper housing, didn't mention the rent. Said he was trying to get back on his feet. Then he asked, "Do you think Ryan could help me? You know, with advice, with legal stuff maybe?" I said no. He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "You've changed." I replied, "Okay." Josh started referring to Ryan as his weekend friend. Then it turned into friend, then Coach Ryan, and one time in the spring, he didn't even notice that he had called him Dad. Ryan looked at me, unsure if he should correct him. I just smiled and said, "He knows what he's saying." By summer, Ryan and I were engaged. A small engagement ring. No drama. No announcements. Just a simple yes in the kitchen, with pizza on the table and Josh watching cartoons in the hallway. We didn't invite anyone from my family to the wedding. They found out anyway, saw photos through someone who knew someone. Aunt Rhonda sent a gift. Everyone else was silent. Which was perfect. Let them be careful. Let them whisper about the cop who married the girl who finally stopped putting up with their games. I was no longer part of their chaos. Now I had my own family. And this one showed up.